This week in Post Unscripted and Uncut, it's a live edit. Hi everyone, I'm Scott Davenport. Welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. Today's a live edit, live in air quotes. I'm not live streaming. What I am doing is taking a photo I've never worked on, fire up the recording device here, start processing, and we'll see what we end up with on the other side. And I want to get right into it because I got this photo it took last week in the San Diego Coastlines workshop. This was a wonderful afternoon/evening. Really interesting sky, great surf. So let's just get on into this. So quick image assessment looking at this. There's a few things that I'll need to correct here. The horizon looks a little bit tilted. There's a few little, objects out here that are distracting. I think I want to get rid of this bit of rock that's in the lower left corner. That's not really adding to the story. And then overall, this needs more warmth. This needs a little more color. And I think for the tonal adjustments here, there'll be some things we do in basic, but this will really be dealing with the sky as one piece and dealing with the foreground as another. So imagine gradient tools and things like that. Let's start with the real basics here. Let's get the lens corrections, make sure that's turned on. Someday I will understand why Lightroom will turn it on sometimes and not others. And before I do the basic adjustments, R key for crop, let's get that horizon line checked. Yep, it's definitely off by a little bit. That's better. I think I'll tug the crop in from the left edge just to get rid of surfer number 1 that was out there. Let's press enter. We'll zoom in and brush away here this surfer. See how that looks. One more click. That second click didn't look so good. Let's try maybe a little tighter on that brush. That's better. And I actually see a dust spot up here, so I'll take care of that while I'm there. And then there was a ship out on the horizon. Where are you hiding? There you are. I'll take care of that one. Click. Gone. Cool. Let me zoom back out and hit the A key to visualize spots. Because there's so much going on in the water, this was a 1 to 1.5 second exposure. That makes a lot of swirling things around, so that often hides dust spots for the foreground. I didn't see anything else in the sky. I will do a quick zoom around the surf just to make sure I don't see anything that looks like a spot. Oh, that's going to be a mistake. That's what happens when you don't press the space bar and drag while you're looking around the scene. All right. Okay, so the only thing left is this kind of rock here. Let's do a sweep over that and see how that looks. That looks really nice. Yeah, maybe one more click there. Nope, that was a bad idea. Let's keep that. I don't think that is going to be... Yeah, it blends in very nicely. Cool, all right. So got that stuff done. Let's get into our basic adjustments. We'll start with white balance. I'll grab the picker and I'll find something in the surf that is bright and a whitish tone. So this is potentially good. This area here. And what I'm watching here is, notice at the bottom of these pickers, there's a few numbers. It gives you the R, G, and B. The closer they are together, the more neutral that particular color is. So that's a good thing to use for a baseline. That one's quite close. Let's go ahead and hit that. Good, we got a little more warmth. I'm going to play with the warmth a little bit and see about if I warm it up a little bit more. I'm starting to get like a pastel type of feel. Now, let's back off on that. We'll stick at the white balance there. And when I deal with foreground and background separately, I suspect I might add a little more warmth into the sky. Okay. Overall exposure looks really good. Tiny bit of clipping. We can see that just in this area of cloud here. There's no important detail there, so I'm not going to stress about it too much. This would be something if I finally go to print this to make sure I've tugged in those highlights just enough, like doing like a soft proofing kind of thing, to make sure I'm not going to have any like paper bleed. So we'll rein in the highlights some. Let's just pull down the highlights a bit. We'll get some of that information back. I'm going to crush it all the way down. It's a little bit too hard for me right now, but you can see some of those sunbeams that are out there. I'm going to bring this back up because I don't want to lose some of these highlights in the foreground, and maybe we'll rein that in with a gradient in a bit. Shadows and blacks. Let's see. Black point. We have some teeny tiny clipping way down here at the bottom, and that's all right. I don't mind. A pure black point there. I will raise the shadows up some, but not a lot. We'll do more localized things here in a bit. Some overall clarity for the scene. Again, some, not a lot. Same thing with vibrance. And this one, let's play with saturation. That's obviously way too much. Those yellows are going to be the thing that pops the most first. Let's push vibrance a little more. Actually, I kind of like that extra glow the vibrance is giving us. So a quick before and after check. Where are we right now? This is before, and this is after. That feels a little bit hot out on the horizon there. Let's back that off just a touch, so you're not going too nuclear on the sky there. What else do we need to look at? I'm going to take a look at the tone curve, because the foreground is still pretty shadowy, and I want to cap the upper parts of the scene here. So I'm looking in the moderate to bright highlight. I'm just going to click once, and what that's done is sets a point for me. That helps me to anchor a certain portion of the curve, and there's still going to be a little play in here. But now as I take maybe the shadow parts up, actually let's find a shadow point here. It looks. Oop, I had that active. Let's find a shadow that is kind of indicative of the middle area of the surf. The rocks I want to stay deep. The middle area of the surf I'd like to get brighter a little bit. So as I'm hovering this little double-headed arrow, I'm also watching the curve of where the point is showing up here. So kind of at the edge of this peak in the histogram is where that surf is hanging out. So we'll nudge that up a little bit, and I'm going to kind of rein back in the deeper shadows, maybe down here. So what that's done for us before and after. It's brightened up the scene a bit. I think it's gone a little bit too much on the highlights. Let's pull the highlight point in a little more. Before the curve, after the curve. So it's given me more of this surf to brighten up, keeping the rocks dark, keeping the sky in check. HSL, anything for color here? I know that there's aquas out there. I'm going to boost saturation on those as well as blues. I'll bring down the blue tone. That's going to be for the under parts of this sky. These are subtle changes before and after. You can kind of see it right in here in these cloud areas. A little bit of these aquas popping up. I'm not going to play too much with the oranges and yellows. We'll do a light experiment on them because oranges and yellows are very sensitive to saturation. Let me just push this a little bit. And it's getting, this is more of a yellow tone. So let's do the yellow one. We're going to see it just gets too hot too fast. It's already looking, for me and my tastes, unnatural here. A little unnatural around the ring of this cloud. So we'll keep that where it is. I think that's going to do it right now for the globals. Let's get into local adjustments. Let's start really working the sky versus the foreground. Let's choose the lighten mode. We'll bring this up, and that's going to brighten up our foreground. And that's nice. I will visit the range mask to protect the deep shadows. Press the O key to turn on that mask. And so what this is doing is I push this farther and farther, we'll see that mask disappear from the rocks. Okay for some of those rocks to take a little bit of brightening, but not a lot. And the range, or sorry, the smoothness will help with that. This is kind of, how crisp do I want that border of the range to be? And that looks better. Let's see, before and after. So the surf is brightening up. That's good. The rocks are staying deep. All right. Let's get a new gradient for the sky, and let's work on the sky here now. I'll pull that down. Let's straighten that out. Another little tip, straightening out as you from very far away from your pivot point lets you be a lot more precise. And here, little tiny motions are very exaggerated on the tilt of the gradient, whereas I get out to the edge, I got more room to work with. We're going to switch that to a darken preset, or effect, I should say. I should use my proper terms. And that's looking better. I think I want to still add some, even though I'm making it darker, I want to add some more warmth to that sky. Because despite the fact the camera didn't catch it all, it was quite warm out there. And that's basically an experience I've had with these higher contrast scenes where sometimes the color gets a little bit lost and you got to coax it back out in post-processing. All right, what else do we want to do? I want to go back to that first point, If I can, I'll have to move you out of the way a little bit, and you're behind the other one, aren't you? Come on. There we go. You're still not letting me touch you. There. All right. If I got it now? That's still not it. Why won't you let me choose that Lightroom? Say done. Go back into that tool again and see if I can pick that point. There we go. I want to experiment with the warmth in the foreground as well. Not as much. You know, thinking of this as far as if the sky is very warm, some of those tones will be reflected in objects like surf and wet rocks, but not at the same intensity. So we'll add a little bit of that warmth there. I'm also going to visit that saturation slider for just the foreground. I'm going to push it really far so I can see what's happening. Okay, yeah, there's some of those colors coming through there. Backing it off some. That's nice. That's good. All right, next, I want to reselect that top gradient, kind of put it back down where I had it before. I want to make sure that that exposure change here is affecting that horizon line completely. I'm going to add another gradient. I want to have it burn again, and this is just for the top part. So I'm like kind of doing a double burn. So the top part of the sky is getting even darker, pulling that down. So it's just going to enforce pulling the eye down there more to the center of the frame. All right, we're going to revisit foreground again. It's still feeling a bit dark. Let's take a look at punching that up even more. And what else do we want to do? So we have this range mask. We're cutting off the rocks. Let's add another gradient. I'm going to use a radial actually this time. Let's use a radial. And we'll position that so I'm covering all the rocks. That's what I'm caring about right now. Rotate that a little bit to pick up this one here. It's okay if I cut that one off. That's not so bad. No exposure changes. What I want is clarity. I'm going to push clarity up and use a range mask so that we're only affecting those shadow areas. So let's start about there. We'll turn on the selected mask with the checkbox. You can also use the O key, and we'll see where we're hitting here. All right, we're targeting rocks. We'll fine-tune that range. That's looking pretty cool. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. Turn off O key. And let's see here. I'm going to back off the clarity for a second. Turn it back on. All right, definitely getting there. I'm going to open the shadows up a little bit too. Those rocks are feeling a little bit too deep. I'm losing some of that detail on the side of the rocks facing the camera. That's looking better. Now my eyes are turning to the surf and getting a little more definition and some brightness in the whitewash of the water. I'm going to leverage the fact that I have this radial filter here, duplicate it, so now it's a second one right on top of what we just did. We'll reset the sliders. We're going to switch our range mask to the opposite end of the spectrum, so we're going up toward the highlight areas. O key to see how that's changing things. All right, that's too much. I'm going to open that up more, getting more of that surf. Let's see about the range here, opening that up a bit. All right, so what we're covering is generally this area. That's good. Turn off the mask overlay. And now let's do some light exposure increase. Actually, I'm going to push the clarity really far so we can see what's happening. We can see it showing up in this area here where it's going to draw more attention to our viewer's eye because it's brighter and a little bit crisper. Let's take a look at the sum total of the radial filters. So we did 2 radial filters, one for the surf, one for the rocks. This is before. And then this is after. All right, so that's a nice change. This is a primary subject in my scene. The sky is my secondary subject. Let's do a full sanity check. Where have we gotten to? This is where we started. This is where we are. And now I'm feeling that the sky is a little bit too warm. So let's find the point where we added warmth. Here it was. Let's back that down a little bit. And I didn't do anything with saturation there. That's fine. You know, as I'm going through this, I think I didn't even look at contrast originally. I didn't. Oh wow. I wonder if I wanted to add some global contrast at this point, because I've done a bunch of other contrast work localized. Let me push it really far for a second here. See what's going on. Maybe just do a couple little clicking around here. You know, as I'm feeling there's a bit of a let me push that again. There's a bit of kind of like a filmy feel to some of the areas here. All right, everything except the rocks getting that big contrast punch is pretty good. So let's go back up again to our gradient areas. Actually, sorry, the radial. What I want to look at is this is the radial filter for the surf. I'm going to temporarily move it out of the way so I can click on the radial filter for the rocks. And why I want to look at this is to take a peek at the range mask and what the settings were. So 0 to 29 and a smoothness of about 24. That isolated the rocks. Okay. And so somewhere in the 24 range is where the rocks will no longer be part of any type of luminance mask. And so now I'll drag a gradient right at the bottom. This is really just to cover the whole photo. And we're going to do this almost a global contrast adjustment. So the push contrast. I know the rocks are going to get a little funky. That's okay. Push contrast. So that's before the contrast, after, better. And now we'll use the range mask to remove the rocks from this adjustment. So the rocks, somewhere around there, let's press the O key. We should see the rocks starting to become more or less unaffected. Let me shoot a Shift O to look at this with a green overlay, because sometimes that'll help me see things a little better. Smoothness down farther, maybe range up a little higher. I'll do Shift O again. These black and white ones are honestly, Lightroom, these are less useful. You need to either just go full on black and white, but this gray and whitish overlays, not helpful. All right, that's pretty good. Let's turn off the overlay and take a look at this one more time before and after by zeroing out contrast, undoing. That's a lot better. This, an oversight. I should have hit this contrast first thing, and for whatever reason, missed doing that at the beginning. The very final touch here is to add a light vignette, maybe just a couple of points before, after. Yeah, I like that. So overall, let's take a step back. We'll take a look at before and after. This was the original photo out of camera, and that's the final result. Is it the final result? I'm looking, and I still feel this is a little bit on the cool side. Let's try one more experiment, one more gradient. I'm going to choose color, because it's going to zero everything out, and I'm going to pick an actual color overlay. So new, we'll drag this up, kind of like that, and choosing a little very soft, like orangey yellow tone. This is kind of like doing a split tone. If I push it really far, let me just click something up really high so you can see what's going on here. It's giving this kind of filter over the ocean. We'll straighten it out. I'm punishing Lightroom right now. I got a lot of filters and a lot of or localized adjustments on here. Let's nudge that up there. Feather it more. Okay. Now revisiting that color, we're kind of doing in a sense it's kind of like a split tone, kind of not. We're just doing a tint on certain areas. Let's push that a little farther that way. I think I do need to push that back up to the horizon. Click and grab it. And let's see here. Is that helping me? Is that helping my cause? I will delete that mask. I'm going to undo, I should mask that gradient, undo it. It's too much at that level. I think a very light touch. That's better. So a very low saturation, and the hue is okay. Let's take a look at that one where if I delete that pin, delete key, and then undo to bring it back. I like that a little better. That feels a little more balanced to me. So one more sanity check on the before and after. Before. After. Yep. I think I'm going to call that one good. Well, tip of the week, I think it's don't forget about global contrast up front. I think if I'd done that, I might have had a bit of an easier time getting to the finished product on this photo. Don't know why I forgot that. We'll just call it one of life's little mysteries. And that will do it for this week's In Post. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know somehow. Comment on the video below. Share this with a friend. You got photo questions? Please send them my way. You can either leave them in the comments, or if you want to keep it private, you can shoot me a message through my website. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.